Hello folks, and welcome to a brand new Unity tutorial. In today's tutorial we're going to do something slightly different, and this one is going to be a little bit of a series, a mini series if you like. I'm not going to show you something specific today. This is episode 1 of how to create your very own first person character controller, and it's very straightforward to follow through. And once you've done it yourself, you can learn from it, adapt to it, kind of like I've done really. I've learned all my stuff via YouTube really, and this is me kind of showing you what I've learned and putting it into practice so that you can actually do it as well. So without further ado, let's get on and do the first person character controller. So we have a blank screen here, totally empty. We've got nothing at all in it apart from a main camera and the directional light, and that's all we really need. I've called the scene first person controller because that makes perfect sense, as that is what we are doing. What we're going to do first of all, we're going to create a cube for our character controller to run around on. So we're going to go 3D object in the hierarchy, 3D object, cube, and there it is. We're going to make it a bit of, let's do it 50 by 50, so we've got a bit of space to play with. Okay, we can F2 on that and call it ground. Why not? Just so we know what we're doing. Always name these things early on, because what will happen is you'll have a whole load of things in the hierarchy here, and if you've just called them cube 1, cube 2, cube 3, it'll take you ages to sift through and work out which one's which. So name them as you go with something relevant to what it is. Obviously this is a ground, that's what we're going to call it. And now we're going to create the basis of our first person controller. So we're going to right click in the hierarchy again, and we're going to create an empty, and that empty is there. Let's just zero that out, 0, 0, 0 in the game, in the inspector, and we'll move up to 2 just to give it a bit of height. And then what we need to do is add a component called the character controller, and we're going to add it here, and there it is. If you can't find it on there, I've put C in already obviously, just type in CH and there it goes, comes up straight away. So character controller. Okay, and if we quickly zoom on the game object now, you can see an outline, and that is a controller. It gives him a height which we can alter if we really want to. We don't want him to be like a blob, so let's keep him at 2. We can change his radius. It's 0.5 at the moment. We can change it to 0.2, really skinny kind of character, 0.3, 0.4. It's entirely up to you what you do. And these ones, we can go into detail with these later, but they don't really do, we don't need to do anything too drastic to those. We can leave them as they are. Feel free to play around with them if you like. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a character controller script. So it's just Control S first of all to save what we've done. We'll go up to game object actually as well and click on the game object in the hierarchy, press F2 and rename it to player or character controller or whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to Control S again to save that. And then we're going to go into our scripts folder. If you don't have a scripts folder, remember how to do that. You right click on the assets, go to create and create folder and call it scripts. So I'm going to go into my already created folder. Nothing in here at all, nice and fresh. I do love a new project. You've got no folders at all. It's where you're starting off with your creation. And then we're going to right click in the scripts folder, go up to create again, and we're going to create a C# script. And we'll call this player controller. And again, you can call it whatever you want, just make it relevant to what it is you are creating. Double click on that and load up Visual Studio. Luckily for me, Visual Studio does load quite quickly on my PC. Some PCs it drags away. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to delete a couple of these little bits here. I don't like these little references here. I can change this so it opens up to whatever I want on here, but I never bother, to be honest with you, because it varies so much. We're going to get rid of the start method because we're not going to use that. We will use the update method, and what we're going to do first of all is declare a few little things. So I'm going to public character controller, and we're going to call that player controller. Now make sure when you call it player controller, you don't call it player controller with capital P, capital C as you've called the class there, because it will come up with an error, because you can't use the same name twice. The class is called, the name of the script and the class is called a player controller. We can call this player controller with a lowercase p and an uppercase C, and I do that a lot when I'm doing declaring variables and different things. I always put a lowercase at the first word, uppercase on the second word. And I think a lot of people also do the same sort of set up with that. It's just something I've learned, something I picked up, and it's a good behaviour to get into, to be honest with you. And then we're going to do a public, whoops, if I can spell it, float, and we're going to move horizontal, semicolon, and a public float, and this one, you've probably guessed it, is move vertical. So there we go, horizontal and vertical. Why have I done that? I've done a space in between the move vertical. There we go. Okay. And then the other thing we need to do, so we've got the character set up, we've got the move vertical and move horizontal. What we now need to do is specify an actual speed that the character is going to run at or walk at. So we're going to go public float. And I'm going to call this player walk speed. I'm going to put that as 5, I think, just see how it goes. And obviously you can change that as and when you play around with it. If you want him to walk at ridiculous speeds, and you can do. The reason I've called it player walk speed, because in the future tutorial, as we develop this character controller, we'll add a run and possibly a crouch as well. So there'll be a run speed and a crouch speed to add in there. Okay, so that's all we need to declare at the moment. What we're now going to do is we're going to do a private void awake. So the wake function is what happens once the scene loads. On awake of the scene, when the scene awakens, get my words out, this is what is going to happen. And what we want to do is we want to get the controller set up. So player controller, which is that there, equals get component character controller. Okay, and what that does is, if I Control S that and go back to Unity, just wait for that to compile. I'm just going to add what we've done now. So go back to the player and drag the player controller script onto the player itself. And as you can see there, we've got move horizontal, move vertical, and player walk speed is 5. As you can see, the player control at the moment is none, set to none. We can just simply drag that if we want to into there, and it will assign the character controller to that. But we don't want to do that, because we're relying on us remembering to do that. What we want to do is at the start of the script, when the actual project loads, we want the script that we've done is to actually allocate that automatically to it. So if we press play now, we should see that change. There we go. It assigns the player's character controller part to the actual script. So it brings that into the script. So we can now access this in the script if we want to. Okay. So quite a good way of doing that, and you can assign a lot of different things, and simply assigning that character controller is by saying the player controller, which is the character controller itself, we're getting the component and we're getting the character controller component, and we're assigning it to the player controller element of the script. If that makes sense, well done. But yeah, you'll understand as we go along. Okay, that is all we need to add to the awake function. That's all we need at this present moment in time. What we're going to do now is in the update method, let's make this a bit tidier, we're going to add a player movement thing there. If you remember from previous lessons, what I like to do is keep the update method as clean as possible. I don't want to put, I could put the player movement code in here and it worked perfectly fine, but as the actual script gets bigger and bigger, you'll find the update method is so huge it just gets ridiculous. So by putting the player movement there and then going down here and declaring player movement, if I can spell it, there we go. So every update that is called, it will call the player movement function, which is down here, and this is where we're going to put the crux of the code, the large part of the code, if you like. So bear with me while I put it in there. So obviously follow along. I'll go as slow as possible. If you want to pause the video to put it in, rewatch it, whatever you need to do, that's absolutely fine. So first of all, we're going to call the move horizontal function up here. So we're going to do move horizontal equals input dot get axis open bracket horizontal semicolon. And then we're going to do the same, or almost the same, for the move vertical, input dot get axis, and this one is in brackets vertical, semicolon. Okay, so move horizontal equals get axis, get input get axis horizontal. So when I press the horizontal button that is assigned, or the controller that's assigned, it will move the player horizontally, and likewise vertically, if I press the vertical button, it's calling the move vertical function there. This won't do anything at the moment. We need to actually show it what it's doing. Okay, so now what we're going to do is type vector 3 forward movement equals transform times move vertical, and vector 3 right movement equals transform dot right times move horizontal. And I've realised I've missed something up there because I've got a red line under there, which means there's an error. I've totally forgot to put the transform dot forward times move vertical. There we go. We all make mistakes, and that's the beauty of Visual Studio, is that it will tell you if there's something wrong, and it will get you to look at the code where something is wrong. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to get the player controller itself to move. Okay, so player controller dot simple move, open bracket, vector 3 dot clamp magnitude, open bracket, forward movement plus right movement 1.0f, and then we're going to do times that by the player walk speed. So this line of code is basically telling us to move forward and right movement, and whatever we move up, down, left, right, we'll times that by the player walk speed. Okay, so we'll control save that. We'll go back to Unity. Nothing should change in here. Okay, and when I press play, you should see some change in here. So there we go. There is our player movement. I'm just using the I'm using the left, right, up and down arrow keys. And if you see the move horizontal, it's going up to 1, minus 1. Up to 1 forward, minus 1 for backwards. So minus 1 for left, 1 for right. So it's a positive or a negative. And there we go. We can change the speed if you want to 10. Let's have a look, see what happens now. Goes a little bit, whoa, goes a little bit quicker, hard to control. Change to 1. Really, really slow. It's like walking through treacle. Okay, let's stop that. So that is the basis of our character controller. Now let me just show you where the move horizontal and move vertical come into play. So if I go up to edit and click on project settings, and let's just put this window up here a minute so you can all see. Make it a little bit bigger. And if we go up to input manager and click on the little axis down arrow, little arrow there, and we've got 30 different things, and the top 2 are horizontal and vertical, and it's telling us that we've got the left and the right for the positive and negative buttons for horizontal. We've also got the A and the D, so if you want to use the WASD keys, and it's also telling us the axis type, and it types key or mouse button and get motion from all joysticks. So if I plug in the Xbox controller now, which I've got, it will actually work on the left thumbstick because it's actually telling us, so we could use the left, the right, the AWSD keys, and the actual keyboard itself, the controller itself. And vertical is there, and again it uses the down, up, the S, the W, and also get motion from joysticks. And what you need to remember when you type in the horizontal and the vertical in the code, you need to make sure it is typed there in the speech bubbles exactly how it is showed there. If I go and put horizontal with a lowercase h and Control S, and if I go back to Unity, going to compile a script. So when I press play, nothing happens. Nothing happens at all. And if I come out of there and you go to the console, we got loads of errors here, 999 plus, because what it did, every time it runs the update, it looks for the player movement script, can't find the horizontal. So it's saying input axis horizontal is not set up. Input axis horizontal is not set up. Edit settings input. So it's going to come up with that. If I clear that now, it'll go away. But if I try and press play again, you'll see all these errors. Boom, look at that. Just keeps coming in. And it comes in every time it runs through the input. Every time it runs through the update on the script, it will flick up this error and it will just keep coming up and you will not be able to move the player. So we're going to clear that. Go back into our project settings, into our inputs. No, we're not going to do that because that's right there. We're going to go back into the script, and change that to horizontal. Control S, and then that should load. And if we click play again, you should see nothing error message wise appear here. There we go, and we can move again. It is that simple, really. And you've just got these bits on here, and that is how you set up the first part of your character controller. So that's what we're going to leave it in this lesson. In the next lesson, we're going to look at things like jumping, and we're going to look at crouching as well. And then after that, we'll add the actual first-person camera to the character, and we'll take it from there. So each lesson will build this character bit by bit into an actual working character that you can use in your own game. But I'm going to leave it there for today. If you've enjoyed that, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.